areas for certain, ideals that we've already set up, because I've been searching around trying to get from group to group.
Mic check.
I was wondering if we can set up designated groups for each ideals to make sure each proposal is met for each city. If I have to clarify more, I've been searching all day to find infrastructure. So can we please make areas designated?
Can I suggest? I will clarify briefly how we're going through proposals so that groups can organize. After the break, we will begin hearing 5-minute presentations on one proposal per group. We will rotate through each group. Presenting one proposal at a time. Until we're done. However that happens. On the issue of finding groups. I would encourage. I think it's best if you just talk to people and look. If someone has another suggestion, please. Doug has a question.
Will we be considering items less than 15 minutes if possible?
Always.
15 minutes is the max.
It is always encouraged to use less than your allotted time. Lars?
Could we take a couple of minutes for people to identify where are the different working groups during the break?
We'll meet during the break. Read the list of what I have.
Sundrop! Read the list of groups. And as she reads them, people with an interest in that group can raise their hands.
This is the list of people who have approached me and said they had a proposal for the GA. If your group is not called, I'm not dissing you. No one talk to me. So come talk to me. First, banking and foreclosure.
Raise your hand if you're in that group. Or interested in it.
Next is redistricting. Next, environmental. Next, Tallahassee.
That's its own group?
That's an excited note.
Wait, how is Tallahassee its own group?
Next, Inter-Florida Communications. Next, labor. Next, human rights. Next, homelessness. Next, education. And last but certainly not least, election slash political reform. That's all I got.
Actually, wait. It was political, because two groups did come together.
Two groups did come together.
Voting group is another group that's like that. It was voting reform, and then the electoral political reform, and there were two groups. There is one more. Remy was supposed to propose that one.
10 minutes.
Infrastructure and public transportation.
something that was mentioned earlier about sending back the proposals to the other GAs so that they could refine them. It seems like that would be dangerous because we would have 15 different groups coming up with 15 different opinions to deliver to Tallahassee, and that would be problematic.
Hey.
You shouldn't have the mic, everyone. You shouldn't be the guy with the mic.
Can I ask everybody to focus for a minute?
Focus for a minute.
The break is coming soon.
So somebody emailed me saying that there's a taxes working group and that they only have one demand about an intangibles tax, and I don't know what that is. Is anybody here from taxes? Can you do okay. Alright, so you got it covered.
Talk to each other that way.
So is everybody clear?
Everybody clear?
On finding your group?
On finding your group?
To discuss your proposal?
To discuss your proposal?
That you're about to present? Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we take a break? Yes. 10 minutes? 10-minute break.
10-minute break.
1:10 p.m. Or we're not.
Or we're not.
Sit down.
Sit down.
We're not.
Mic check.
Mic check.
I want to begin the meeting by reminding everyone of what we are discussing. As we move through proposals, we are approving them. To send back to GAs. For more discussion. We are not approving them to become part of a formal statement. Yet. After our first round of proposals, we will have a discussion for 15 minutes about how that process of sending things back to the GAs will work. Next we have Cecilia provide a brief description of process.
Mic check. What we discussed at the facilitation meeting is as follows. If we have any discussion, feel free to chime in. Here's what I've got. 15 minutes per proposal. 5 minutes for your presentation. And then 10 minutes for discussion. Please try to keep nitpicking to the absolute minimum. Keep your comments proposal centered. If you have a problem, state how it can be amended. So we can move forward. If you have simple grammatical edits that don't change the meaning, write them on a piece of paper, and give them to Sundrop. This grammar issue will be worked out on the forum of the People's Convention website. That's what I got. Does anybody have any concerns about that or issues? Questions?
My question is about the 5-minute presentation and 15-minute discussion and how that goes down.
So the first thing that'll happen is somebody from a working group will come up and present one proposal. And then the General Assembly will adjust it as it sees fit Until we can come to consensus on it. Or not. I just want to call attention.
The fact that we have
2 new stack takers.
Ian and Denise.
We'll help you.
Question.
Does anyone else want to take minutes?
Does anyone else want to take minutes?
Please.
If you want to volunteer to take minutes, come over here.
Me.
Siren break.
I guess people are confused about the working group rotation thing.
People are confused about the working group rotation.
So people got on stack.
Sundrop.
So that's how we're doing it. In order of who signed up.
Should I encourage everyone who is participating, please form part of the circle. If you're not, keep your voice down. Because it makes it really hard to hear. And there's a lot of side conversations. Thank you.
So, the first group that will be presenting, banking and foreclosure. Again, each speaker is able to choose people's mic or amplification. Where is banking and foreclosure?
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Whereas the people of the state of Florida have far too long been abused and usurped by the malicious practices. Whereas the people of the state of Florida have for far too long been abused and usurped by the malicious practices of alien, non-Florida corporations, the citizens of this state are hereby resolved. We demand a 3-year moratorium on the unjust practice of foreclosure to eliminate illegal seizure. We oppose non-judicial foreclosures of mortgages and further deregulation of the foreclosure process.
All right, so do we have questions?
Do we have questions?
For this working group?
I'd just like to make a request.
Jasmine.
I'd just like to make a request. Since I'm taking notes for this meeting. When a working group is done speaking. Can you hand me your proposal? So I can put it in the notes. Well, whenever they're done with them.
Whenever you're done with them.
Scan them. I've got some copies.
We have over here.
Well, I was wondering if
Mic check.
the moderator, after a working group makes a proposal, could just briefly surmise the proposal.
William.
Could you repeat that?
Actually, can you?
I was wondering if the financial...
We weren't done with that? I didn't understand what he said, really.
Just repeat it.
I couldn't hear.
I was just asking if the moderators could briefly surmise after the working groups have made their proposals.
Okay, Their proposal was just totally hijacked. Please let them finish.
Please let them finish.
Save your questions afterwards.
Save your questions afterwards.
What proposal was? I think we liked it, right?
We didn't say we don't have
We're taking discussion.
So it's my understanding that she was finished. With that proposal. There are other proposals. That they'll get to in the next round. But I think it was the time. Questions on that proposal. Are there more questions?
Are there more questions?
Or responses?
Can we clarify the
Can we
proposal
clarify?
again? Can we clarify the proposal?
The proposal?
Yes.
By clarify, do you mean repeat?
Yes.
Repeat the proposal.
Sorry.
We propose to demand of Tallahassee that a 3-year moratorium on the unjust practice of foreclosures to eliminate illegal home seizure be enacted. And we also would like to let it be known that we oppose the non-judicial foreclosures of mortgages, and we oppose the further deregulation of the foreclosure process.
Do we have any further questions or concerns?
Do we have any further questions or concerns?
No, I was trying to...
Next on second bill. Do we not consent?
I have a concern about the practicality of the proposal. When you're saying that you want to stop all foreclosures for the next 3 years, I'm really not. I'm in the real estate business. I hate the foreclosure thing going on, but I don't see if people are not paying for their mortgages, and I just don't see how we can simply say that we have to stop this process. I just don't think it's realistic. I think it's way far beyond what is sensible, and I'd like to know how they propose to deal with the fact that a lot of people just simply are walking away from their homes and leaving them there. And not paying anything, and they're just living in them. I just don't see how this can work, that we can encourage people to simply stop paying their mortgages and still live in their houses. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That?
Working group. But is a point of order.
Response, Mariel.
I was part of the group that helped draft this.
Yes, you do.
I was part of the group that helped.
Close to your mouth.
I was part of the group that helped us propose this, and I live in Naples, Florida. Who's Bill? Right, Bill. I live in Naples, Florida. There's a representative, state representative, Kathleen Pasadomo. Okay, she was not elected into office. She got the office because another foreclosure attorney stepped away. She is also a foreclosure attorney. She drafted a bill that would allow robo-signing to be a non-issue. And all those clotted foreclosures aren't a problem, according to her. And that bill isn't going to gain any traction. But the fact that she has the gall to introduce that bill when so many families are suffering is part of the reason why I said we should ask for 3 years. Because having worked with some legislators, I know when you ask for 5, you'll get 2. When you ask for 3, you might get 1. So we have to ask for the sky in order to receive the earth.
Why don't we ask for 5?
Stack?
I think.
I think yes, the law would need. Yes, the law would need refining. Yes, a broad, no more foreclosures law would probably be abused. A broad, no more foreclosures law would probably be abused. Yes, there would have to be some standard for people who were actively seeking employment and unable, but the idea is not to create a huge mass of homeless people just so there can be a real estate market. The idea is Okay, the idea is not to create a huge wave of homeless people just so there can be a real estate market. There would have to be some sort of strictures saying if you're looking for work and cannot find it, if you're doing everything you can. We don't want freeloaders for sure. And, more pictures, please. That's all.
It seems like it's not our responsibility as Occupy to come up with exactly the legislation for this. We're not lawyers or legislators. So I would suggest that we make this demand what we want. And then honestly, I think the Democrats are kind of scrambling right now. They really need us. They're probably some of them are gonna bend over backwards to give us what we want. So I'd encourage us to shoot for what we want and let them figure it out.
Just point of information, if you hold the mic directly like this, horizontal to your mouth, you can hear it. If you hold it like this, it doesn't pick it up. Thank you very much.
I deeply sympathize with those that lost their house in through the predatory lending practices that happened before the financial collapse. However, I believe that including this proposal, including a moratorium on foreclosures, we're at risk of just looking like a group of people that want a handout.
I'd like to suggest that people who have problems with a proposal consider offering suggestions. So we try to turn no's into yeses. Just an idea.
Mark? Yay, Mark. Roar!
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Mark.
As someone that is being foreclosed on by Wells Fargo, banks got bailed out, we got sold out. I paid my mortgage up until April when I became ill and I couldn't afford it anymore. And then they went into foreclosure on me. It's not my decision. The value of my property lost about $100,000 that I paid in, like over $80,000 of value that I paid in, and I'm screwed. So when I say, you know, fucking moratorium on foreclosures, it's like screw the banks, man. This is our chance to take back what they took from us. And I'm sick of it. So I'm for moratorium on foreclosures, man. And screw the banks.
I'd like to second those previous remarks. I worked on the committee as well, and what we have to remember is that the banks are trying to accelerate the process. They started out with the rocket docket. Remember that? Rushing everything through the courts with no time for people to defend themselves. Then the courts responded with mandatory mediation. And then the banks stonewalled in the mandatory mediation. The banks have behaved badly in this process, especially the banks that received the TARP funds. Now that there's mandatory mediation, first of all, they're pushing the Supreme Court to eliminate that, and they're pushing in the legislature. They had a bill last year that was defeated, and they're going to try to reintroduce it again to take the entire process away from the judges. That's what non-judicial foreclosure is. So they're trying to speed up the process. We're the other side. So if they're trying to speed it up, what should we be doing? Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Bill.
I really love what these solutions that people are coming up with. I love what people are coming up with for solutions here, and all that I would like to do in the proposal is to make it so that these kinds of ideas are there so we have credible solutions for it, and we're not just simply making a big blanket demand, that we need to have some credibility and some information behind it so that it makes sense.
Nathan.
speak on this?
I think it's important that we include in this proposal some sort of, I think we should include in this proposal that in order for this to have effect for individuals, we need to add something such that banks need to actually present the mortgage that they are trying to foreclose on. And if they don't have that mortgage, then a 3-year moratorium for that individual should be accepted.
Can I rebuttal that?
Can we, yeah, we have a response from the group.
This is taken from a working group statement that we've been working on for 2 months in Fort Lauderdale. I like what he just said, Nathan just said. We could add wordage, something like, banks have taken our houses through an illegal foreclosure process despite not having the original mortgage documents. You could add that language to it.
I see a lot of support for that. I also want to call attention to this friendly amendment.
This friendly amendment. Happening in front of you.
I like that.
I like that. We have a point of information.
No, he just wants me on stack.
Oh, I thought you were doing this.
Stack? Well, it's a point of information too. But
get him up. Well, that jump stack. So, do you want to be on regular stack? Okay, Lauren.
Oh, yes. I'll jump yes. Further consideration. Just real quick, something that we should think about is that whenever you take action against a big corporation, like if you raise taxes, you know how they always pass that on to the consumer at higher prices? What they're going to do with this is if we say no more foreclosures for 3 years, then they're going to tighten the credit restrictions and they're going to restrict who they loan to. So we should include with it something saying that they can't do that as retaliation.
Okay, Greg.
Yay, Greg. I feel like I'm sorry, I'm just going to ignore him.
Alright, what I was saying is my point of information was...
Hey, hold it horizontal.
My point of information was tagging on to what he had said, but if we put a 3-year moratorium...
Not being heard back here.
If... Can somebody talk to me?
People's mic.
People's mic. Just a little bit closer. My voice is shot.
My voice is shot, I'm sorry.
Yay. If we put a 3-year moratorium...
If we put a 3-year moratorium...
On repossessing a house...
On repossessing a house...
The banks will find ways...
The banks will find ways...
To let people who are borderline... not get houses.
Not get houses.
This will hurt people trying to get houses.
This will hurt people trying to get houses.
I like the second part.
I like the second part.
That's opinion, but that was my point of information. Good job.
Okay, Valerie.
1 minute.
Whether this exact version of the proposal is what is decided on, I think that the intention is very good because, for example, Bank of America, here in the state of Florida, foreclosed on a house that they did not have a mortgage for. These people paid for a house in cash, and Bank of America still tried to foreclose on their property. They went to a lawyer and got it thrown out in court because obviously it's egregious, but Bank of America refused to pay their court costs until their lawyer actually went in with the sheriff and said, we're going to take anything that's not bolted to the floor and foreclose on the Bank of America. And suddenly then they were willing to pay the legal fees. So something needs to be done about their power to foreclose on people who don't even have a mortgage with them.
Amen. I need to announce. We've expended the 15 minutes allotted for this discussion. We have 2 people on stack. Can I get a temperature check? On adding 3 minutes to our clock. And closing our stack.
Stack is closed.
Stack's closed.
To clear it.
Clear it.
We have Chaz.
Chaz.
And Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Chaz. Want to process?
Have someone on deck so there's not so much time of people in between, so the next person knows.
I know what I just did.
As Chaz steps up, let me remind you what we are moving towards consensus on.
Let me remind you what we're moving towards consensus on.
Which is to send this proposal. For further discussion. To local GAs.
My basic idea of what you guys are doing is pretty on. I like the concept. However, I'd like to point out that there's also an important issue that you have to deal with long term when you're dealing with the fact that all these mortgages will end up ultimately not being paid and will sit in a moratorium. And then that's going to affect itself that itself is going to affect the financial markets and so on and so forth. If too many of those places are then done, then of course there's going to be a falling of the financial markets as we know it. So one of the things I wanted to kind of also point out that we might want to work within the amendments or with this proposal would be considering trying to, I guess, kind of help the banks to realize that they need to reassess the values of the elevated values that they've already put on some of these properties, and kind of try to bring them back to a point that people can re-afford getting back into those homes and credit being available to them for that.
I think we have a response from Amy.
We're only allowed one proposal at a time, and that's another one of our proposals in the foreclosure working group. So you have a great idea, but we're going to mention that later.
Next up.
Hey, Jasmine.
I just wanted to say. All of the nitpicking. Is what we're supposed to be doing. In our home occupies. If we spend all of our time. Excuse my language. But bitching about the wording. We're not going to get anything accomplished today. If you like the general basis of a proposal, then say so and move on. When we all get home, we can pick this apart as long as we want to. In our nice, comfy, small groups. And after we're done with that, we can send it back here. Which is their process. Right now, we're just deciding. If we want to argue on this later. Not if we want to argue on it now.
Thank you. Well said.
Well said. A restatement of the proposal. One last time. Before we move to consensus.
To install a 3-year moratorium on the unjust practice of foreclosure to eliminate illegal seizure based on mortgages where the banks cannot produce the original mortgage document, and we oppose non-judicial foreclosures of mortgages, and we oppose further deregulation of the foreclosure process.
So is there support in the group for this idea? For this idea? Looks like a lot of support to me.
I think we've reached consensus.
Good job, Amy.
The next presentation will come from the redistricting group.
That's me, so I need to...
Doug, I can take time. I have a stopwatch on here, but I'm about to die.
Briefly. As part of your presentation, feel free to provide explanatory comments. Or context for your proposal.
The redistricting reform, we demand redistricting reform at all levels of government. That's the demand. You want an explanation? Okay. Redistricting should be removed from the excessive influence of incumbents on the process. To accomplish this at every level of government, at the school board, at the county commission, at the city council, at the state level, the members of an independent group of 5 citizens should be selected by the chief judge of each relevant state or county district prior to the year of the census. When the results of the census are known, the chief judge should convene the group for not more than 1 month to draw maps. Any citizen previously selected who is unable to serve shall be replaced by the chief judge. No citizen shall serve on this appointed body who has held any elective office in the last decade. Further explanation? A panel of this sort, made up of technocrats isolated from the political process, drew all the lines in Iowa last year in 1 month. There were only 2 members on that committee. We're calling for 5.
Are you ready for questions?
Ready for questions.
How much of that?
How much of that
is part of the actual proposal?
It's part of the actual proposal.
The actual proposal has a proposal, a why, and a how.
Brittany next on stack. And then Christian. Get back.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I'm not sure how to word this. But the panel that you just proposed seems to me like it opens the door for corruption. I know it seems like it would be anti that, but for some reason I can see that being used as a tool to manipulate those 5 people into being newly appointed representatives or whatever, just like the government we have right now.
Response from Doug.
This panel is appointed by the chief judge of each district. At the state of Florida, it would be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who, if he wants to retain any credibility in his reputation whatsoever, would be required to appoint the panel that is neutral and remove. The key is remove it from the people who are now drawing the lines to find the voters that they want for their incumbent districts. It's run by the incumbents. We remove it, put it in the judicial process.
Christian, Jen, and Cecilia.
I really like the idea. I think we could, I would hope you guys would be open to a friendly amendment. If we could put further restrictions on the 5-people panel to say maybe no partisanship or no party ID should be taken into account when they redistrict, and it's simply based on population and geography, some sort of further restriction.
We're certainly open to that. We suggest that this proposal go out to the cities and come back to us.
Jen, Cecilia,
I think the proposal needs a lot of work. To put us in a frame for thinking about this, I think the whole concept of districts is outdated. For example, if the state of Florida set up the number of representatives that it has and lets the whole state vote on a list for each party, and each party get proportional representation to the number of votes they got, and the same thing for school districts and city councils. If there's 8 members of a city council, then the whole city votes and the top 8 people get it. So I think that I don't want to get involved in trying to reform a system that I already know is not working.